Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're taking a trip to the very northern tip of Manhattan to uncover the wild story of a medieval European monastery that somehow, almost magically, exists right in New York City.
I mean, seriously, how does that even happen? Well, this is so much more than a museum. It's a tale of a passionate, treasure-hunting artist, one of the world's most famous philanthropists, and the unbelievable challenge of moving entire medieval buildings, stone by literal stone, across the Atlantic.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get to the bottom of how this place even exists. Then, we'll meet the two incredible men who dreamed it up. We'll look at the insane engineering feat it took to build it before we check out its most famous treasures. And then, of course, I'll tell you exactly how you can plan your own trip back in time. Okay, so first things first, what exactly is this massive fortress-like building that's just sitting on a hill overlooking the Hudson River?
So yeah, it's technically a branch of the Met, but the Cloisters is a whole different world from the museum on Fifth Avenue. Its very walls are built from the ruins of actual European abbeys. The whole point is to transport you, and it houses around 5,000 priceless works of medieval art.
So how did this place even come to be? Well, it all starts with the amazing story of two very different guys, whose visions somehow combined to create the Cloisters.
On one hand, you've got George Gray Bernard. He was this American sculptor who literally bicycled through France, finding and buying up architectural ruins from monasteries that had been destroyed centuries ago. And on the other hand, you've got John D. Rockefeller Jr., who had the vision and, the money to turn Bernard's wild collection into a real public museum. And this timeline really shows you how it all came together. Barnard's private museum, which he opened way back in 1914, kind of planted the seed. But the real game changer was when Rockefeller bought the legendary unicorn tapestries in 1922. Then, in 25, he bought Barnard's entire collection for the Met. That set the stage for the massive project that would finally open its doors in 1938. What a partnership, right? It totally changed the cultural map of New York City.
So they had the art, they had the architectural pieces, but how in the world did they pull off building a believable medieval monastery in 20th century New York?
This just blows my mind. The sheer ambition of this is off the charts. They weren't just building with old stones. This was like a giant transatlantic jigsaw puzzle. They took apart entire sections from 4 different French abbeys, cataloged every single stone, packed them up in hundreds of crates, and shipped them to New York to be put back together. It's just wild.
And this is a really key point. Rockefeller's vision, which architect Charles Collins brought to life, was never about making a perfect historical copy. He wanted something picturesque and romantic, something that felt like it grew right out of the rocky landscape of Manhattan. It was all about capturing a feeling, not just recreating a building.
All right, the museum's built. Let's step inside and actually see how these ancient stones create such an immersive, totally transportive experience.
The Curation Cloister is really the heart of the museum, and it's the best example of that feeling of being transported. It's built from what was left of a 12th century monastery near the Pyrenees Mountains. And if you look closely at the details on those pink marble columns, you'll find everything from these beautiful, intricate leaves to biblical scenes and even these bizarre, monstrous creatures. And it all surrounds a garden planted with species a medieval monk would have totally recognized.
And if you really need a sense of the scale of this project, just think about this number, 3,300. That's how many individual stone blocks the Fuentidueña apse was broken down into. They got it from a ruined church in Spain.
And those blocks, they arrived in over 800 crates, and it took 7 years. 7 years of incredibly careful work to rebuild this one single chapel. That's an unbelievable testament to the dedication that went into this whole thing.
So the architecture itself is breathtaking, but the Cloisters is also home to one of the most famous works of medieval art in the entire world, the unicorn tapestries.
You have to hear this. This was George Gray Bernard's passionate sales pitch to John D. Rockefeller back in 1922. And you know what? He wasn't exaggerating. These tapestries are considered the absolute peak of the art form, and, well, his pitch obviously worked.
And here's the price Rockefeller paid for them, $1.1 million. In 1922, that was an almost unimaginable amount of money. It just goes to show how determined he was to make these tapestries the crown jewel of his collection.
But the story of how these masterpieces even survived is a miracle. During the French Revolution, they were looted from a French chateau and were so undervalued that soldiers reportedly used them to wrap potatoes to keep them from freezing. Can you believe that? An incredible journey from potato sack to priceless treasure.
These 7 panels were woven around the year 1500 from wool, silk, and shiny metallic threads, and they tell a story that's just packed with symbolism. On one level, it's this dramatic, courtly romance about hunting a mythical creature, but on another, it's often seen as a Christian allegory for the Passion of Christ. The whole journey ends with this iconic image, the unicorn, captured and killed, now brought back to life and peacefully resting in a garden. It's this powerful symbol of purity and rebirth.
So, are you feeling inspired to make the journey yourself? I thought so. Here's a quick rundown of how you can escape the city bustle and step right into medieval Manhattan.
You've got a few options for getting there. A car might be fastest if there's no traffic, but honestly, the A train is easily the most efficient and affordable choice. For just a few bucks, it drops you off in Washington Heights, and it's just a short, really scenic walk to the museum entrance.
This quote from Rockefeller from the opening back in 1938, it really gets to the heart of the whole project. His ultimate goal wasn't just to build a museum to store old things, it was to create a sanctuary, a place of peace and beauty that could give people a real break from the modern world.
And that's really the question the cloister still asks us today, isn't it? It's a remarkable piece of history, of art, of architecture, but maybe its greatest gift is the chance to disconnect and find a quiet moment. It's a medieval castle, still offering a peaceful escape right in the heart of New York City.